Hey everyone, it's Alex, and welcome to the Marvel Snap Decks of the Week. A reminder, with the first week of the season, we do things a little differently here. Because we don't have any infinite-only stats to go off of here, we are using untapped-based statistics from 70 all the way into infinite, and we're going to be ranking the decks this week based off of the cube rate exclusively, okay? There's a couple surprises in this list, so let's dive right in. If you'd like to support the content, be sure to hit that like button. It would sincerely make a massive difference with that whole YouTube algorithm thing. Getting right into it, the Phoenix Force deck is just my favorite. It's not on the top 10 this week, but what is top 10 was Zemo. No, I'm not drunk. You're probably not either. You are reading this correctly, and I want to kind of word a caution here. So straight up top 10 ranked, this does make the top 10 slot. It's 230 games played, a 65% win rate, and a great cube rate of 0.87, but there's going to be other insane cube rates because, of course, the bot inflation side of things. Now, if you're facing bots, you want to climb to infinite with something fun, you're like, screw the meta, I don't care, then yeah, play some Zemo. But this deck makes absolutely zero sense outside of that, because you're going to see so much Surtur that playing, I don't know, Gladiator is probably a terrible idea into a Surtur deck, right? You're bound to hit like big chunky boys half the time. So I'm going to advise against this deck. If I'm going to be reporting on the statistics, this is here. It cracks top 10. And hey, listen, I love a good Zemo deck. I cannot complain. So if you want to play something a little spicy, yeah, give it a shot, right? It does have Shongers and it does have the Shadow King. So theoretically, you have answers to the current meta. It's just the whole Gladiator thing that seems like a little bit of cope. But if you want to play something different, go for it. But I would advise against it. The rest of the decks are not as sus. But hey, the stats show this is number 10, so I got to report. It's my duty. And Hela, now this one's interesting as well, and I should go on a second word of caution here. 62% win rate, 0.87 cube rate, another good one. What I will tell you though, specifically with the Hela decks, is the reason why they perform so well as you're leveling is because the bots don't know how to read into them properly. And so as you're leveling, they have high cube rates because you're going to have almost no board. The bot usually has initiative going into turn 5. They snap. You do your turn 6 play, their calculations are like derp. I don't know if they're going to win or not. And they just go 8 cubes on you and you just bring massive power onto the board. So Hela right now is a great bot farming deck. So if you're looking to get to infinite, you don't care how you do it. This isn't one of the options. But in terms of actual competitiveness, it's fallen off significantly since the nerfs it's received, basically making Luke Cage an absolutely mandatory component of the deck, which is what you see here, right? So anyways, if you want to play something a little different, you can play some Hela. It's not really meta right now, but in terms of the bots, it will feast on bots without question. Now we have a couple Frigga decks. Now this is kind of surprising, and in my recent review of Frigga, I actually said I really liked the card a lot. It doesn't surprise me that it's doing particularly well. This one here is an Ajax based deck, and I think the thing I like about it is it does feature a card like Medusa, which is a pure spicy addition there. I was not expecting it. You got the Hydration Robert, you got Sable, you got Valentina, you got a lot of stuff to love here. And of course, one of the recent cards in Anti-Venom, Frigga working really well in there as well. So a very interesting kind of like toxic based Ajax deck. And it's working very well, excellent statistics, and that actually goes hand in hand with the next deck we're going to talk about, but it's a bit of a different flavor of Frigga. This one here focuses much more on the debuff, allows you to play the Ajax, much more similar to the way you'd play a Gilgamesh. I've said it multiple times, but traditional Ajax, like when it first came out, we tried to just like destroy our side, destroy their side, and just massive 20-something power Ajax. Now we're actually doing the opposite, where we are running the Luke Cage, and we're letting Ajax just get to like decent, strong numbers as a 5-drop, and not like overcommitting and just destroying their side, right? No one's playing Luke Cage on their side, and so the Ajax just generally enough power. So that's what we're seeing right now with the Ajax style plays. Now keep going with the Frigga. We have a Frigga ongoing deck. Now US Agent's doing very good in the meta, and one of the reasons why this deck performs so well, because listen, I saw this and I'm like, I gotta play it. So I was playing it, and one of the reasons why Surtur just dies to US Agent, because you play US Agent in a lane, you Frigga, you play US Agent in another lane, and because of the ongoing interaction with the way Surtur works, and like they can only really play the 10 power cards into the Surtur lane, because you play the US Agents in the other ones, and so they get negatively impacted by the fact that the ongoing ability doesn't proc the Surtur effect. And if they start playing things into one lane, well, then they're just going to lose, because that's what losing is, right? You're not putting enough power onto other locations here. Claw gives you a pretty interesting read here. I like the use of Claw, because what I was doing was I was often reaching into locations they weren't expecting. Claw into Onslaught's pretty damn cool too. This does make use of Anti-Venom, but very easy to substitute if you want. I mean, there's a lot of options to substitute if you're not looking for Anti-Venom. Like this deck a lot. It was a lot of fun when I was testing it, and obviously you have the Shadow King here in lieu of something like a Shang-Chi, because the deck runs a little heavy on the other side there. So less expensive cards tend to be better with Frigga because you can make better use of them. Going on to our next deck here, we have Arishem. It's still cringe, but it's still good. Arishem running a 61% win rate, a 0.89 cube rate. It's a good deck. I mean, it's pretty much the same list it's always been. Right now, you're seeing a lot of Enchantress being added into it. The top shells of Arishem do run Enchantress because you are seeing a lot of ongoing cards. And quite frankly, the deck's just good. And we are seeing an increase in the amount of Cassandra Nova being played because it seems like toxic style decks are kind of being popular. And Frigga specifically works really well with those toxic cards because the effects are additive with the Frigga copy. Arishem is just doing exactly what Arishem's always done. It just puts up massive power. It has the Loki on turn 2. Loki on turn 2 is basically a snap condition. Alioth turn 5 and upwards, right? You can often catch people by surprise with Alioth on turn 5. I find it very fun that Legion still makes these decks despite the fact that, I don't know, it's a bit of a flavor play, but you know, it doesn't necessarily progress. I tend to run Vision in my decks, to be honest with you, but Legion's fun. Legion's more fun than Vision is. So yeah, Arishem, still doing Arishem things, still one of the best decks in the meta. Going to number 5 at 61%, we do have, well, it's Bounce. Toxic Bounce more specifically. This deck is just good, man. And the more I play this deck and the more I realize that, like, I'm glad that Black Swan officially has a spot in the game now. It actually works legitimately well in this deck. Agent Venom, of course, absolutely completely broken. It's funny how no one's really talking about Agent Venom right now because Surtur is so insane, and don't worry, we'll talk about Surtur later. Agent Venom's still completely insanely cracked and broken and probably should have gotten nerfed and didn't, right? Like, let's be honest. So that's still in the meta. This particular deck runs Bishop, which I have not been finding to be the best, but I mean, the stats don't lie. Bishop making these decks, and Hitmonkey is definitely a solid one. There are different variations of this list that run the Werewolf by Night. I didn't include him in this top 10 because this deck is performing better than the Werewolf by Night edition. Hitmonkey's just good, but if you want to cut Bishop and go something like a Werewolf by Night, you definitely can. You definitely can. It's also a good performer. Toxin's been amazing for Bounce. It makes it so much better to play, so much easier to play, so much more interactive. So yeah, Bounce is a lot of fun. And so if you have these cards, it's definitely worth giving Bounce a shot. Going into the top 4, another Cope deck, another very interesting deck. This was running a 62% win rate in a 1.01 cube rate. It had about 300 games, and this is a Strong Zoo. And I found this fascinating because it had a couple interesting cards. Now, obviously, it has the Agent Venom, which helps to, you know, benefit things a lot. But it also runs Electra, which is interesting considering the amount of bounce we're seeing out there with Toxin. And you might have these massive Silver Sables or these massive Rocket Raccoons you can snipe, right? It also has this like Zoo element with Khazar and Blue Marvel with Strong Guy. Crazy cook, but you know what? The stats don't lie. Now, this one here, I actually included over the traditional Zoo list that we've been talking about very often because actually, currently in stats, this is actually overperforming it. But what I will say is it's also much cheaper. So if you want to play standard Zoo, I mean, I've covered it for the last 3 months. You can pick up one of the links from one of the prior videos. If you want to try a spicier, actually more beginner-friendly version, like this is a super inexpensive version of Zoo. Of course, it has the Agent Venom in it. But if you got the Season Pass last month or you're spending tokens on it now or whatever before it gets nerfed or if it'll ever get nerfed, I don't know if it has like insane Season Pass plot armor. Now that it's out of the Season Pass, well, yeah, I thought this was super interesting. It's worth highlighting. And sometimes when we do like the cube rate based first week, we see some really creative stuff. And so I like to feature those whenever I can. At number 3, we have Toxic Sarah. Sarah's going to be coming up a couple times here. And these toxic decks have been doing very good. We kind of discussed them earlier. I do really like the use of specifically US Agent in the current meta. You do have Ghost, which is really good. Ironically, this deck does not run Shang-Chi. It uses Shadow King in order to kind of counterplay some of the Searcher play and stuff like that. Ghost, a very interesting card to include here. I do like the Red Guardian, so if you recently picked up Red Guardian, you can definitely use this deck. And there is so much ongoing right now that Rogue has skyrocketed in popularity and is an immense cube rate card. The reason for this is because a lot of the Agent Venom decks want to use things like Iron Man and Mystiques because Iron Man going into a 5/4 is literally the best card in Marvel Snap. So you're seeing a lot of Rogue gameplay out there. So, you know, may as well use it to your advantage. And a lot of people are not taking Rogue into account when there's a lot of snaps happening. So I like the card a lot, and I like this deck a lot, especially when you're looking at a Toxic Sarah style deck using Luke Cage. Toxic's all over the place right now, as is Sarah, who comes into another different style deck. Now, once again, this is an Agent Venom based deck, but this one here is leaning more into the Mysterio, the Bishop, and Hitmonkey based package. This also runs Gwenpool, which has been kind of like, honestly, more meta relevant than I think people expected. Gwenpool being a very legitimate card from a prior season, which probably goes a little underappreciated. It's not as game-breaking as Surtur is or Agent Venom was, but in its own right, it's been a good card. Invisible Woman being used here, and this is a deck that I think is like the new Sarah Control. A lot of people see the Invisible Woman, they're like, why is that there, Alex? It's there because what you're able to do is you're able to play the Invisible Woman, and then you can play Shadow King behind it. And then so if they have like Athena or if they have a Surtur or whatever, you put the Invisible Woman there, and then you just wipe it out at the end of the game because Invisible Woman always allows the Shadow King to reveal last. Another combination you can use with Invisible Woman, of course, is going to be Killmonger. We recently just spoke about how Bounce is back in the meta, and Bounce continues to be a great choice. And I think that once we get into like the infinite only stats, you're going to see that Bounce is near the absolute top. And what the Invisible Woman allows you to do is it allows you to play the Invisible Woman and then play the Killmonger behind it. Because what Bounce is so effective at is relinquishing the initiative. They pick everything up and then you get initiative, and so like you're holding Killmonger and you're like, well, what am I supposed to do with this Killmonger, because I'm going to play it and it's going to hit nothing, and then all their cards come down. The Invisible Woman allows you to flip the page with the Killmonger, and it gives you a major advantage in snap condition over the bounce decks, which tend to be so good. As we move on to our number one deck of the week, a reminder, if you've not hit that subscribe button, I would just kindly consider hitting it, because it honestly makes a huge difference for me. We are literally almost 1,500 subscribers away from 100,000 subscribers. I can't believe we just might make it in 2024, and I would sincerely appreciate your support from the bottom of my heart. And you know what? You might not even realize that you're not even subbed, so why don't you just give a quick check, make sure you've hit that sub button, guys. It would mean a lot to me, and I have a lot of new content plans that we have coming up as well. I'm really excited to share that all with you, so I appreciate your support as we go to number one, and it should be no surprise, it's Surtur. Listen, and I could have chosen, like, there's a bunch of different versions of Surtur. This is technically the best one. It's running 72% win rate, 1.42 cube rate. It's I don't know what to say. Like, every other deck is good, and I'm like, hey, look at this 0.87 cube rate. Like, literally, this is almost double. The win rate's 72%. Yes, there's bots, but Surtur is absolutely bat poo crazy. Like, Surtur is nuts. This is currently the top performing deck. I like it. You know, I like Surtur because obviously it's absolutely cracked. I think it has a lot of answers though, right? I think Shadow King's a great option. I think a lot of people are using armor. This particular deck is running Cosmo, which honestly, Cosmo makes Surtur so much more reliable because you're able to protect your big chonky boys so much more effectively against Shang-Chi and the Shadow King. Armor still leaves your card, specifically Surtur, vulnerable to Shadow King. So, but of course, Shadow King doesn't affect, you know, Obsidian or Crossbones or anything. So just bear that in mind as you pile out the deck. But yeah, Surtur, absolutely broken. Am I going to say they have to nerf it? I don't know. Cozy and I will talk about it on the Snapchat. It is so stupid how incredibly good this card is. And we'll have to see if it remains this way for very long. It is a season pass card, so it might have a little bit of plot armor, but we'll have to see. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll see you on that next one.